Greetings from Tokyo, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I would very much like to continue on our journey and exploration through the set released by the Criterion Collection early this year in 2020 called Essential Fellini. And this time I'd like to focus in on the 15th and final Blu-ray disc in such set, and it has this very interesting documentary about Marcello Mastroianni, which is called Marcello Mastroianni, I Remember. Documentary, which is by Anna Maria Tatò from 1997, which is called Marcello Mastroianni, I Remember, and it is the 194 minute version of the film. Let's take a step back and recall that the set here from Criterion, Essential Fellini, has in total 15 Blu-ray discs, the first 14 of which set forth, respectively, a Fellini-directed film or co-directed film in the case of Variety Lights, and supplements that relate to Fellini or the film or Fellini's career writ large. So those are the first 14 discs. With the 15th and final disc in the set, we have a film that is not directed by Fellini. It's not focused specifically and primarily on Fellini, although there are aspects of the documentary that do cover stories about Fellini, but it's not directly centered on Fellini. It is in fact, however, centered on Marcello Mastroianni, and to be even more specific, it is a documentary where we have the camera intimately with Marcello Mastroianni, which allows Mastroianni to speak to the camera and thus to us about his life and his memories and his career and his views on cinema and his experiences on cinema. And this is a beautiful portrait of such an iconic figure in not just the world of Fellini cinema, not just in the world of Italian cinema, but in the world of cinema, period. Marcello Mastroianni is one of those legends, icons of cinema. And given that icon status, to have this film, which is, as I said, from 1997, so this is in many ways one of the last documentaries we have on Marcello Mastroianni before his passing. We get from him directly stories about his youth, stories about how he fell in love with cinema at a young age. He makes reference, for example, to Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire films, which is a lovely detail, especially when we recall one of the films he did with Fellini was Ginger and Fred. And in fact, there are some scenes that we see early on in the documentary from the film Ginger and Fred. And I'll get to that detail momentarily as well. But that's a lovely thing that is, again, part of the discussion of by Marcello Mastroianni of his youth in cinema. And he also speaks about a wide variety of topics and a wide variety of films, because after all, his career is very vast. And it's interesting too because he has worked with a number of filmmakers. Of course, he has worked with Fellini, but he's also worked with Ferretti and also Visconti and Petri and others. And he's also worked in Italy and also outside of Italy. And so his discussion of a number of the important landmark films that he has been in also serves in a very, I think, very valuable way also serves to be a kind of discussion through the history of Italian cinema and also through the history of late 20th century cinema, centered on the performance of or the presence of Marcello Mastroianni. So this is so great, and Marcello Mastroianni thus becomes a guide for us, as well as becoming the focus of our attention for this documentary. And his manner and demeanor is so warm and charming, and I mean, we can see why he was so beloved by the entire world, and he still has it. And when he speaks, we listen, because everything he says is just golden, absolutely golden. There are some great anecdotes that he has about some of the filmmakers that he worked with, like Visconti. Also, he's talking about other filmmakers like Manuel de Oliveira, and he has a great anecdote about meeting Martin Scorsese, and how for example, he says, he talks about how he visited Scorsese's house, and on the walls there weren't any paintings on the walls or anything, but in fact there were all these film posters on the wall. And there's a really humorous anecdote about a particular poster from Poland, and so that's worth checking out, as well as Marcello Mastroianni's comments about Scorsese and what he identifies as being the influence of Italian cinema on Scorsese's films. And he draws a really nice parallel, in fact, as an example, between Scorsese's Mean Streets and the Fellini film I Vitelloni. So I thought that's a great discussion. So that's an example of why this is such compelling and arresting work. And it does also focuses on many aspects of his career, many of the films that he made throughout his life. And part of that discussion is also the time that he had and spent with working with Federico Fellini. And so he talks about working on those very iconic films, La Dolce Vita, 8½. He also speaks to a certain degree about the unmade film by Federico Fellini, called it's sometimes translated into English as The Voyage of G. Mastorna, but also I think it's more recently known as The Journey of G. Mastorna, in English anyway. And so we get some interesting references to this legendary unmade film by Federico Fellini, and Marcello Mastroianni's comments, brief comments about what ended up happening that made it an unmade film. But this is really important in the world of Fellini discussions, so it's great to get the reference here. We also have further discussions by Marcello Mastroianni of cinema at large. There's a really charming moment where he's referring to memory, and to support his discussion, he brings up the film Blade Runner, which is just a marvelous detail. It's so cool and wonderful and charming to hear Marcello Mastroianni talk about Blade Runner. It's so wonderful. But anyway, these and other anecdotes and episodes are reasons why this particular documentary it's charming and wonderful and lovely. And it's a nice presentation. It's indicated from the outset as being a restored version of this documentary. And again, it's the long version of it, so it's the 3 hours plus version. So it goes by, it has a nice methodical and a very relaxed pace about it too. It's not like a straightforward documentary of the life and times and biography of a historic figure. And it's a very casual placed conversation with Marcello Mastroianni in these intimate settings. He's in his car, or he's in his garden, or he's in his room, and he's just sitting at a table talking to us just like we are there, and we are his companions, and he is our companion. And the film takes its time, focusing in on his films, but also primarily on Marcello Mastroianni, the man himself. And I think that's part of the beauty and part of the power. In fact, that is a main part of the power that this film holds. So this is the documentary from 1997 called I Remember, or Marcello Mastroianni, I Remember, from Anna Maria Tatò. This is interesting when we remember that it's part of the essential Fellini set. As I say, it's not focusing in directly and primarily on Fellini, but it is relevant in the context of a Fellini discussion, because we know that there are references in the documentary itself to films by Fellini, including Journey of G. Mastorna, which is a very important episode in the 60s career of Fellini, as we know. Also, of course, it is very relevant because of the work and collaboration between Marcello Mastroianni and Federico Fellini. I mean, it can be said that of the many important collaborations that Fellini has enjoyed in his career, and we've had so many, I think his collaborations with Marcello Mastroianni is one of those that are that is so memorable, because what they created together is just so iconic and so famous, and landmark, milestone, historic stuff in the context of the history of cinema. So it's great to have this focus on Marcello Mastroianni in the context of Essential Fellini, and also it's great to have the focus on Mastroianni himself, because as I was indicating from the outset, his story is cinema's story. I mean, his recounting of his many film work is very much like a history of film. So it's a testament to the fact that his reach and his influence and his iconic status in the pantheon of famous cinematic figures is well deserved, because he was there, and he's been there from in many important moments of the growth and the development of the history of cinema, as we get a sense of in this documentary. So it's great in that way as well. So this is the 15th and final Blu-ray in this set. There are no other supplements that are included here. We have the film. It is, as I say, 3 hours plus. So I think that alone is it's more than enough, I think. And there's great stuff in it already, and you can take your time with it. It has this casual pace, and it feels very contemplative and warm and welcoming. So it really goes by very quickly. So it's a wonderful way to end the discussion and series, and it also comes at the end of it comes in the 1990s, and so we know the 1990s. I mean, Fellini and Mastroianni, they lived up to the 1990s, and of course, they passed away during these times, and so this also feels like, in many ways, a kind of final testament from one of the players from the world of Fellini, and then a very important player. And so in that way, it feels like a fitting end of this journey as we have it embodied in the Essential Fellini set. So I find it a very interesting choice for the 15th and final disc, and so it's a wonderful choice. This is the documentary, Marcello Mastroianni, I Remember. Okay, my friends, so that's it for now, and so I will be making one more video, at least, on the Essential Fellini set, so I look forward to seeing you there if you're interested. Until we meet again, though, please be happy and healthy and well, my friends, and please keep on watching a lot of great movies. Thank you so much. Once again, thank you so much for joining me on this Fellini journey. We're almost finished, but until we meet again, be happy and healthy and well, and keep on watching a lot of great movies. Thank you so much, and cheers.